Hey, kia ora everyone, it's Chris here from Bailey, sitting down with Leonie from Property Council New Zealand, having a chat about earthquake-prone buildings. So, Leonie, how are you today?
Fantastic, and it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, no, it's always nice to come in and have a chat in your offices. So, mate, we've obviously had some announcements from the government around earthquake-prone buildings and some big changes coming through the system. Before we start off, what are the changes in a nutshell so far?
So I think what we're seeing is a real common sense approach to earthquake-prone buildings, and it still is all about preserving life. That is the number one priority, and that hasn't changed. But it's going to ensure that a lot of our towns and cities don't end up as ghost towns.
Yep.
So the changes that they've introduced are sort of three key things. The first one has been around scrapping the NBS, or New Building Standard methodology and rating.
Okay.
That's caused a whole lot of confusion because it's been a percentage, and there's been a lot of inconsistency with that, and it's created lots of problems. So that's going to go. The next thing is around regional application. So they've adopted a much more risk-based approach to seismic and earthquake-prone buildings. So, for example, low-risk areas now are not required to do anything around earthquake rules.
Okay, and that includes Auckland and Northland, right?
And Chatham Islands.
Chatham Islands,
yes,
just in case you've got property there.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget Chatham Islands.
Yeah.
So that sets some clarity for there.
Yep.
Then for medium and high risk areas, there's still obviously requirements.
Yeah.
And then the third area of change is that instead of sort of that standardised new building standard type rating, it's much more of a matrix. So on one side, it's dependent on whether you're a large urban centre or a small town. So there's different requirements.
That's interesting, yeah.
And their thinking behind that is that if you're a small town, then you don't have so many people. So if there was an earthquake, the chance of somebody being killed or something falling off a building is much less than, say, if you're in Wellington, where there's a lot more people.
Gotcha.
So the first differentiation is about the size of the town. Then the second bit is around the number of stories in the building. So if 3 stories and above, there's another set of criteria.
Okay.
And then there's another one if it's unreinforced masonry.
Okay, yeah, so they're trying to make it a little bit more practical rather than just a sort of black and white percentage rating.
Yes, and target the buildings at most risk. That's what they're trying to do, rather than have a sort of a global thing. And one of the analogies I've used is that it seems to me that, you know, the previous system was a bit like if we had every owner in New Zealand who owned a car, once it got to 10 years, once the engine got to 10 years old, the government would mandate that you had to change it regardless of whether you needed it or not. Now what we're getting to is you maintain your own car engine and you change it when it's necessary. You know, it's much more practical.
It's a bit more targeted, right, into where the issues are.
Yeah, but preserving life safety is still the number one issue. That hasn't changed. So there's still some work to do on developing the framework, but I think it just makes a lot more common sense because, you know as well as I do, Chris, there's been so many buildings right throughout the country in small towns which have just sat empty because people don't know what to do.
Risk of blight, right?
Exactly, yeah. and they haven't upgraded because of the cost, or they haven't upgraded because the rules keep changing.
Or you hear that voodoo stuff in the system. Oh, the rules might change. I better hold off on doing anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of small towns that have been impacted, but also places like Wellington where there's a lot of empty buildings, and I often get asked by politicians, and they say, Leonie, why's Wellington got so many empty buildings? And I've always been saying it's largely around the seismic and the uncertainty. So anything that brings better clarity into our sector around this massive issue is so critical.
Yeah, and so Leonie, would the view at the moment be that generally the changes look quite positive?
Yes, yes. So the feedback we've had from the sector has been very positive.
Cool.
Because really the key thing is nobody wants to argue about safety. That is number one, but the certainty is really, really important.
Yeah.
And so people actually know what are the rules and what they have to do. And as well as I do, when you upgrade buildings or do major refurbishments, they are massive cost and big time frames. So, you know, if you end up changing the rules every couple of years,
yeah, it's just a nightmare,
it's
right?
just a
like no
nightmare.
one's going to do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so there's obviously a bunch of areas, like in the initial announcements, we get a bit of a sense of the direction, more detail to come.
Yes.
If people are hearing things out in the industry where maybe they're like, oh, I'm not too sure, or they think it might be an issue, is there a way to communicate with your team and sort of put it on your radar?
Yes, you know, because this is just the first stage of the announcement. So what happens with government now is that they've made this initial announcement, which is really positive, sets a clear direction. The government agency are working on developing the frameworks and more detailed stuff, so that'll be happening over the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
It will come back to the sector for consultation and feedback, and they're looking to pass the bill before the next election next year. So that's sort of that time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that didn't really feature in the press releases, but I still think is quite important that they did mention in the cabinet paper, which was around heritage buildings. So they're going to work on heritage buildings and seismic, because that's quite challenging.
Yep.
And the second one is the link between the seismic and the health and safety legislation.
Yeah, because that's always been quite a tricky thing for people to navigate, right?
Yes.
Particularly where maybe it's an earthquake-prone building,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh man, does that mean that we can't use it now?
That's right, and
Yeah.
people don't often understand, and that's been the challenge with that MBS rating. And we often saw it too, was it's not just even that sort of professional director type thing, but for people who are on their board of trustees at schools,
Yeah,
and
100%.
they're trying to deal with a seismic rating for their school buildings, and they're all wondering. So if we can try and get some clarity in that, I think that will help as well.
No, that sounds cool. So I guess if you are hearing things out in the industry, definitely link in with Leonie's team, have a bit of a chat, and put it on the radar. Like there's obviously a whole bunch of complexities out in industry, things like seismic warranty clauses and
Yes.
leases, like how is that going to get navigated? So all that intel will really help.
Yes.
And well look, Leonie, thanks so much for sitting down, having a bit of a chat about this issue, and we'll probably check in with you again later on once we've got a bit more certainty around where things are going.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we'll keep the industry informed as we hear anything, and we're proposing to run some webinars and other events on this as more information comes to hand.
No, awesome. Yeah, so definitely subscribe into PCNZ, make sure you're on their mailing list, and get that juicy information as it comes out.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, thanks, Leonie. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, Chris. Great to see you.
Sweet to see you guys.